Drifting is the most revolutionary mechanic in rocket racing. Yes, you heard that correctly. In a game where players have discovered methods of increasing the speed of their vehicles with glitches, breaking out of the barrier, and recently, deleting the barrier altogether, that seems like a ridiculous statement. However, it is only when you begin to probe deeper that you begin to appreciate just how far players have gone to gain time on the track. This is the story of how players revolutionized rocket racing. Rocket Racing was released on the 8th of December 2023, and after experiencing their first race at the live event, many quickly took to the tracks and began trying their hand at the game. But one issue plagued the early state of the game: speed. Despite the speedometer displaying speeds of 570 kilometers per hour, the car felt especially sluggish. So slow in fact that many quit the game after reaching gold rank for their free skin. Players quickly realized that if someone didn't find a method to go faster soon, the state of the game would deteriorate fast. But luckily, it wouldn't take long for that to happen. On the 11th of December, PenBiz uploaded a clip to speedrun.com of his new discovery, and what he found changed the game forever. PenBiz had been experimenting in private lobbies whilst playing day drifting, and soon came to a shocking realization. Every time he performed a drift, his car would gain a boost in speed, and a noticeable one too. So by chaining them together, theoretically, he believes his car could go faster. And after uploading his clip to Speedrun, Nathan would take to the track on the same strategy, setting a world record faster by over 4 seconds with a 1:29.28. Over the passing week, all world records would quickly plummet following the discovery, with the most notable reduction being on Dust Up, reducing from a 2:32.43 by Camo Sensei, all the way down to a 2:24.64 by Dancing Rat, just under an 8-second optimization. It seems surprising that it took 10 days for chain drifting to be discovered and implemented into world records, but you have to remember, at this point in the game, there were no tutorials. Players had to figure this out themselves. But even with the discovery of chain drifting, speed was still plaguing the game. It remained a significant issue. With no difficult mechanic in the game, the future of the game had begun to get cloudy. The game was on its last limb. It needed another discovery, a technique which was both easy to learn and hard to master. And luckily, a group of unreal players would do that for the community. Having played since day one, they felt there had to be a way to go faster, be it in the short term or long term. Chain drifting had been a nice addition, still in its baby phase, but there had to be more mechanics, and after extensive testing, a group was finally rewarded for its efforts when they discovered air drifting, a mechanic that had purpose, simplicity, and skill. By drifting off a ledge and holding the button in the air, they had found it was possible to maintain its charge, and while seeming like a small discovery at first, the more they thought about it, the more it became apparent just how game-changing it was. Up until then, many speedruns had been decided on how late people were able to cancel their drifts. However, with the new strategy, each track's lines had changed entirely. But the mechanic was simple by no means. For controller players, it became a nightmare having to drive normally whilst keeping a finger on drift, whereas for keyboard, the extra buttons made it not as difficult to manage. After seeing the mechanic, many world records would fall, with the most notable map being Windy Way, which saw a 4-second decrease from 2:13.10 by Psycho Existence to 2:09.82 by Chiku. And it was at this time that the top players would establish themselves, set aside from the rest as they became the first players to master the mechanic. And as the clock hit midnight on Christmas Day, all seemed well for the game's future, and it was. But it was far from over. Because around the same time, another mechanic had been discovered. A player by the name of Dusk had been using air drifts on Airborne 2, which was beginning to establish itself as a favorite map of many. And on a track like that, with various jumps and extras where the mechanic could be implemented, Dusk expected to find a new route for the track. But that was when this happened. By complete accident, Dusk had performed Rocket Racing's first recorded mirror drift. By holding an air drift off the edge of an upside-down platform, the car would invert itself in direction, carrying the charge with a different orientation. and as a result, Airborne 2, the map Dusk had identified as having the most potential, would quickly be optimized by multiple seconds. And with Dusk's discovery, EWARS was recently able to reduce the world record to 133.184, an unbelievable achievement, especially considering the previous world record was a 137, a 4-second improvement. And that should have been where this video ended. But in recent weeks, another group, who wishes to remain anonymous, were able to uncover a method of chain drifting that EWARS was able to use on Anaconda, finishing with a time of 1:38.89. Looking at parts of this run, it almost looks like at the end of certain drifts, the recording has been sped up. But surprisingly, this isn't the case, as the group were able to replicate it themselves. Zik has provided potentially the best explanation of the technique yet, where he said,
he's going to purposely go pretty wide, and then he's going to cancel the drift, and the way he's going to do it is by holding his joystick to the right, and then he's going to tap his drift button, right? And when he taps that, it cancels it. But what he's going to do then is he's going to continue to hold his joystick to the right even after it cancels. And that's immediately going to put him into a turn to the right without auto drift or drifting at all. And so that's immediately just going to, it looks like his car just turns to the right like on a dime. Just, I don't know, it's weird to explain.
Turn buffering still remains an underutilized mechanic in the game, with very few world records being set with it, and the ones that have were all set by EWARS, who hasn't been the most vocal in sharing the technique due to his main interest being Battle Royale. However, after seeing EWARS take every single expert track world record without utilizing any bugs or glitches, it is apparent just how useful turn buffering is and will continue to be. And considering how early we are in the game's future, turn buffering seems to be the brightest spark currently going into the future. But in terms of useful drifting mechanics going into the future, it is by no means over. In the early days of the game, a trick known as a bug slide was discovered by Shahanaru on Pleasant Pit Stop, where by drifting within a 3-frame window after landing, he was able to turn 90 degrees whilst preserving momentum. With the recent addition of air rolling, theoretically, this should be much easier. However, a genuine use for it is yet to be found. Members of the community have been able to replicate this, with Sven managing to perform it on 2 laps of Pleasant Pit Stop, although after doing so, he doubted whether it would be much faster than the normal route. For a track to be useful for a bug slide, it needs to have multiple sharp corners where drifting would be much slower. One track that seems promising is Sidewinder, and when it releases, Sidewinder 2, which is currently in the game files. It may be faster on many other tracks, these are just starting points for those who may one day reignite the sparks extinguished months ago. With all the uses for drifting and rocket racing, and the levels of skill required to perform them, it is a reasonable statement to say that drifting, up to this point, has been the most revolutionary mechanic in rocket racing. Thank you for watching. In a time where we normally use to talk about our Patreon, we'd like to shout out Spaxy, an Australian Fortnite streamer who recently hit Unreal in rocket racing and has been very kind in helping us grow our Twitch. If you're interested, please consider visiting his Twitch and giving him a follow. The link will be in the description. Our link will also be attached. Thank you all, and if you want to see how drifting allowed for the discovery of the first rocket racing glitch, click the video on screen now.